Hello everyone, it is the me, Game Penguin 21, and today, well, we are going to be talking about this now. Now, I don't think that I'm going to be putting out a video next Tuesday for Halloween, because, quite honestly, I don't have any good video ideas, and the two videos that I would like to cover, I've tried to re-record them so many times that I might not even get around to doing it, so... yeah, but the videos I have in the pipeline currently is still the AI one because there's some more information there and I have to re-record the whole thing now because I get late on stuff like this. I also then have to, as well, record this one, and then there's an Amazing Lucas video I also want to take a look at, and I should probably see about his Spider-Man 2 review if he's going to put one out, and maybe look at some of the other people that I have not looked at so far. So there's a lot of videos and stuff in the works. But overall, today we are going to be looking at Mr. Harman Smith, because quite honestly, I'm hungover after a long day of just fucking doing bullshit. And quite honestly, I need some fish to shoot. So with that being to say, today we're going to be looking at this video about why Spider-Man Peter Parker 2 has failed PlayStation for some reason. Now, in full defense of PlayStation, I won't be saying this often, but at least they sold like 2.5 million copies, which is a solid number for a sequel to a game. And people are comparing this to the 6 million plus players that Starfield has. And again, to be quite honest, with the amount of bugs that I've seen and stuff like that, this game still got a 91. And I don't know how to feel about that, because, I mean, again, it might just be the bias of, like, say, seeing too much of the bugs and glitches and stuff, and everyone blowing them out of proportion as well. But overall, if the game functions fine, the game functions fine, I guess. It's just, I don't know, people being disingenuous all around, but unsure if Spider-Man 2 actually deserves the 91. Just kind of saying. Anyway.
It looks as if Spider-Man 2 on the PS5 is having a number of issues upon release. I'm hearing reports that there's an installation problem where the game isn't playable for a lot of people because a patch isn't downloading correctly. I'm seeing people complain about wokeness. I'm seeing people complain about the declining quality from the first game in general. And then there are people like me who would never ever support the game to begin with because it has Miles Morales, right? Who is not Spider-Man, right? When I buy a Spider-Man game, I want to play as Peter Parker, Spider-Man, not some wannabe cosplayer that the self-insert character for the writers, okay? I want Peter Parker in my Spider-Man game. So
okay. I'm sorry, I have to pause there. You cannot look me straight in the eyes and for whatever reason, say that that's okay. I don't know why that, to me, rubs me the wrong way in some way, in shape, or form. But he literally says he doesn't want it because of Miles Morales and thinks that Miles is not Spider-Man. So, I am so confused in this. Because one of the things that Miles is that they're if you've seen or know about any of the lore of the Spider-Verse, which is the general comics of everything having to do with Spider-Man, you don't... I don't know. I don't know. It comes off weird. I don't want to say the word, but I think everyone here just got a little bit uncomfortable. That just sounds off, right? It's not just me. It's not just me, right? It sounds weird to say that you don't want to play a game because of Miles Morales. That sounds... it doesn't sound good. I don't know why. There's no way to make that sound good. Justifying it. That just... it sounds like racism. I don't want to cry it. I don't want to cry it. I don't think that he's trying to be that way, but it comes off very close to being that, oh, jeez. Moving on.
It's interesting to see kind of the narrative around Spider-Man 2 fall apart, because for the past couple of months, people were hyping this up as the next major release for PlayStation. This was going to be the big thing. This was going to stomp Mario. This was going to be a huge deal. But as the months dragged on, as we begin to learn more and more about it, as we begin to see get those pre-order numbers in, Mario was outselling it on Amazon. When we saw those review scores, Mario outperformed it. When we saw the games themselves, it was pretty obvious to everyone that wasn't a complete snoy that Mario was the far superior game. But I had plenty of people in my comments section, in my uh, in my community posts, like trying to tell me, no, Spider-Man is better. It's open world. Mario's just a 2D platformer. It's not even a major release for Nintendo. They're gearing up for Switch 2 because they know they'll never be able to outperform Spider-Man. It led me down this rabbit hole of like research.
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Realizing that like Mario is actually a bigger brand than Spider-Man, realizing that we've seen a huge decline in sales over Spider-Man over the past several years, like realizing that the Mario movie is better than Spider-Man. It did far better than any Spider-Man movie.
Okay, so first of all, I have to just say this. I have to mention this up front while I have his break in here. Snoy is a weird insult to bring out. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that's supposed to be, but that's going to go in the vocabulary book. Number two, I'm unsure if the actual movies of them did better in terms of profitability and stuff, because they were both CGI related things. They were both really big movies at the time. So unsure. I don't have the specific numbers, and I'm not going to look them up for you guys. I'm fairly certain you can Google it. If I do, I'll just throw the numbers and stuff up on the screen while he's explaining this in the editing process. So disregard that if I do actually put that up. But to say that Mario is bigger than Spider-Man, I don't think so. I'm fairly certain most people can recognize both characters. It's very odd. And it's also funny because he's the kind of person that says, like, the Mario beats Spider-Man. And it did actually do better with Mario getting a 93 on Metacritic, with Spider-Man dropping from a 91 to 90 from the last time that I checked on the scores. So, whatever. I shouldn't really tout too much of the scores in general, but fuck it. Overall, like, again, I'm fairly certain that it is actually a major release, if I'm being completely honest here, because it is a first-party Nintendo game, and a Nintendo game that actually does do what Nintendo does best, to be very clear here, make good platforming type games, so it plays to their strengths. But overall, it's very odd. It's very odd that they're like this, because like there's so many shit slingers from the entirety of across the entire internet, and it is just, what is your point here, Harman? Please elaborate more as to how any of this relates to it. Like, of course, you would say that like Mario Wonder was better in every way because it's a Nintendo game, and Nintendo can do no wrong, according to Harman Smith, and we all know how reliable of a narrator he is.
Realizing that the people who are praising Spider-Man are just hopping on a bandwagon and have no real inclination to like play video games at all. Like, it's kind of like the Baldur's Gate 3 thing again, where like you just have a bunch of people trying to like meme this game into being successful. Like, oh, if we just like type Baldur's Gate 3 onto Twitter over and over again, that'll create the illusion that the game is popular and talked about, right? It reminded me a lot of that. Like, Spider-Man is basically like the PlayStation equivalent of Starfield, right? A game that has a ton of problems that very few people are talking about, purely because it's an exclusive, right? Like, the issue with Baldur's Gate 3 is that it's a PC exclusive. The issue with Starfield is that it's a Microsoft exclusive. The issue with Spider-Man is that it's a PlayStation exclusive. You have all of these games that are exclusive to one or two platforms, right?
And yet Nintendo gets a pass because why? Okay, that's a stupid argument, and that is such a hypocritical argument there. Holy shit. So the problem with Baldur's Gate 3 is that it was a PC exclusive, even though now it's coming out on other consoles and is becoming a multi-platform. They just have a slightly staggered release of it because they had to get certain things wrong, or certain things correct with it, I should say. The Xbox doesn't have exclusives anymore because they share a lot of their stuff with the Xbox ecosystem, which includes the PC. And you say that the only valid thing with that is that the problem with the Sony game of Spider-Man 2 is that it's a exclusive. Yet none of the games that you listed, right, includes, let's use an example that you said, Mario Wonder, which is an exclusive to the Switch. Like, you see how hypocritical that statement is, right? You're saying that all these other games, right? All of these other games with millions upon millions of sales that break records in a lot of ways, and Nintendo does it too, but they break a lot of records because they're so popular. All of those games are bad because they are exclusive to one or two-ish platforms. And yet, none of the games you listed were Nintendo exclusives. How does Nintendo get a pass for this? Please explain this to me.
You have these games that are just religiously defended by certain people who simply will not admit their flaws at all.
Excuse me? Mr. Kettle, Mr. Pot called. He says you're black!
Right? Like, all you had to do to realize there was something up with Spider-Man 2 was ask yourself, how exactly is this game better than the Arkham trilogy, right? Like, wouldn't that be its primary competitor? Like, the game you would compare Spider-Man against? Like, is it better than the Batman games? How does it innovate? What does it do? Like, does it use the rogue gallery? Is it, like, bringing back classic voice actors? Is it, like, following, like, some famous comic plot line? Like, is it... No, like, when you compare the two, like, it's obvious to anyone who's, like, remotely familiar with either brand is that, like, the Arkham trilogy had a much better... Well, at least the first game. The Arkham trilogy, the Arkham Asylum was a far better received Batman game than Spider-Man PS4 was as a Spider-Man game. You know, Arkham invented like its own combat system. It incorporated stealth elements and incorporated lots of classic Batman villains in interesting ways, reasonably interesting ways. You know, it had a reasonably good plot. It had voice actors from the animated series. Like, it had like all this stuff that got people excited for it. And it's not the best game in the world. It's a solid 7 out of 10. But like, that's far better than what Spider-Man came up with. You know, why exactly should I get excited for Spider-Man other than the fact, like, ooh, it's Spider-Man? Like, nobody has been able to justify that to me. You know, nobody has been able to justify Miles Morales' presence or, like, all the QTEs or, like, the fact that the combat is, like, a straight ripoff of Arkham, right? Nobody's been able to justify that.
In all honesty, I kind of agree with that whole thing. I just had to skip past most of it and stuff like that. But, yeah, to me personally, right, I agree with that notion. Not entirely. There's like bits and nuggets of truth that I agree with in there, and the most of it is that to me it doesn't justify buying a whole system just to play Spider-Man, because whenever all these PlayStation fanboys out here being like, oh, just buy a PlayStation, because we have the best games and shit, and you're missing out on some kind of stuff. It's like, cool, guess what? I'll wait for them to port it over to PC like they've been doing with a bunch of their other console exclusives in the recent times. I will wait to maybe figure out one thing or another thing because I have a bunch of backlogs of other games and a bunch of indie games that I want to get around to actually supporting because they make games that I like. You're probably watching one of those indie games right now. Or I can go back and play really old games, which is another thing that I've been doing recently, where I've been going back and playing Half-Life 1, the original Half-Life, which is still available on PC. Same thing with Half-Life 2. Where is Half-Life 2? But oh yeah, it was also ported over to the consoles and stuff, so that makes it a multiplat. Bullshit. The only thing is that it was ported over to the Xbox 360 and it was in a bundle of 2 other games, including Portal 2 and Portal 1, I think, and Team Fortress 2. Okay, whoa. Interesting notion there, sir. But yeah, while they are still they're not available anymore. That's the thing. Or at least they're not available, I don't think, without like backwards compatibility on the consoles systems. I don't know if they are or if they aren't. If you can play them, I'll eat these words 100%, but like I don't see anyone still playing them on the console, and I still see a lot of people going back and referring to them, at least in terms of this in the regular space. It's very weird, all right? It's very odd, and it makes no sense to me, all right? It's just, I don't know. Anyway.
Been able to tell me why this game is worth getting excited for. And in a lot of ways, it's like worse than Starfield in that regard. It's worse than Baldur's Gate 3 because Spider-Man, being a generic superhero, has more stiff competition. Like when you look at Starfield, you're just like, oh, you can just okay, it's an RPG where you explore the stars. Okay, that might be interesting. That might be fun. You know, you get to upgrade your ship or whatever. You get to explore all these planets. Okay, that might be interesting. You know, you look at Baldur's Gate 3. Oh, it's a hentai game. You know, okay, like maybe if I don't want to play a game and I want to just like, you know, have some D&D like orgies with like Shadowheart and like her boyfriend, like I'll play Baldur's Gate 3, right? Like
Holy shit. I did not expect that from Mr. Harman Smith. Oh my god. Like seriously, I need a break from that just because like that's so fucking weird to me. And he's like, oh, it's a hentai game. It's like, what the fuck? Tell me you've never played Baldur's Gate 3 without telling me you've never played Baldur's Gate 3. Holy crap.
like if you know, I can understand why certain people might be attracted to these games, even if the games aren't good, right? But with Spider-Man, like there really is no justification for it, right? It's basically just, oh, it's Spider-Man, right? Like it's Spider-Man. Like okay, but what's the gameplay? Like it's Spider-Man, but okay, what's the story like? Is it written by actual? Well, it's Spider-Man. Okay, but is it better than the Arkham Trade? It's Spider-Man. Like over and over and over again, all right? And it was so embarrassing. I was very frustrated about it, but like the thing is, I could tell the game wasn't going to be successful, right? I knew this was going to be a bomb. I knew it was going to fall by the wayside. I knew it wasn't going to win Game of the Year. You know, I knew it probably wasn't even going to get nominated. You know, I knew there was this thing where like this was going to be like, you know, the PlayStation exclusive to Starfield, you know, the PlayStation exclusive to Baldur's Gate 3, where like it's just talked about pre-release because like non-Nintendo gamers have nothing else, right? Like it is that kind of game. You know, it is the hi-fi rush of like the second half of the year, right? Like, oh,
Oh boy. Look, here's the thing. Spider-Man 2 is probably going to get at least a nomination. I'm pretty good at determining what gets nominated. Maybe not as to what gets the Game of the Year stuff, but what gets nominated, I normally can figure out what it is and what's not correct. So, of all the games that are going to get nominated this year, Baldur's Gate 3 is obviously going to get one of the slots with at least Spider-Man 2 and maybe Starfield. Unsure because like it wasn't received as well. It's very odd to me. It's very odd to me. I'd like it in my heart of hearts. I agree with a lot of what Harman Smith says in this little rant of his where he goes off and says, oh, it's all Spider-Man stuff. It's like, get me more pictures of Spider-Man, you know? To me, that's where, like, a lot of the discourse tends to come from, is that they use Spider-Man, this big major release from Sony and PlayStation, to kind of justify the major releases of other games, I guess. Or at least that's what it feels like. And again, I agree. There's a lot of things where it's like you are talking to a fucking brick wall whenever you try to bring up specific points, because they're saying, "Oh, there's no bugs. Like this, there's a lot of bugs right here. What about all these? Like, oh, those are like only so few of them." It's like, yeah, but some of these seem like major game-breaking issues that could really like soft or even hard lock your game, and major crashes and things like that. It's like, yo, but it's a Sony release, so don't worry about it. It's like, sure. Again, I mean, it's, I don't know. I hate that I'm agreeing with Harman in this context, but I can't disagree with him here because, quite honestly, Jesus Christ. But some of his more blatant stuff at the beginning is very weird. And to be quite honest, I think that I'm going to be wrapping this up here, so let's speed run this shit. Okay, you know what? Actually, I'm just gonna edit that last bit out. I don't think he says anything more. There's 3 minutes left of this video, but I'm gonna have to tap out because he's just gonna keep on rambling and reiterating the same points. So, congratulations. In any case, I think I'm done for today. I am nursing a fucking monster headache and hangover. So, yeah. In any any case, my name is Nntendo21. If you like what it is that I do, please make sure to follow me in the links in the description, all of my social media, and if you want to support me monetarily, totally not necessary, but it always helps out. Links to that sort of stuff in the description down below. My new single, Movie Night, should be out at least by today, should be up by at least tomorrow or today, because it's my newest EP for Bandcamp and stuff, and I'll probably release the whole video the same day that I drop the album, or not the album, the EP. And if you like, again, links in the description specifically to the Bandcamp to figure all that stuff out. In any case, thank you so much for watching this episode of I Lose My Fucking Mind After Having a Very Hard Night of Drinking, and a peace off.
Hey man, can I get a favor? Yeah, sure, I know, see you later. Sometimes I just wanna be a hater. Gotta wash down the top 40s with a chaser. Your voice starts feeling like a waiter, scraping my mind against a cheese grater. Before you go, sir, you have to sign a waiver. That's alright, I'm aware of the danger. You wanna get away, you better get in line. Won't go another day of wasting any time. I've got a lot to say, can't hold it in this time. Got no filter, I got no filter. No